U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Israel this afternoon, only hours after the departure of Vice President Vance. The top U.S. officials are continuing efforts to shore up the fragile Gaza ceasefire and advance the Trump peace plan. The American leader is related to the preliminary Knesset passage of the Judea and Samaria annexation bill, which brought on many reactions. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Israel at the start of a two-day visit only 3 hours after Vance's departure. The top officials followed envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who have moved on to lobby in the Gulf as part of their diplomatic blitz. Amid Vance's visit, the Knesset passed 2 opposition bills in preliminary reading to apply Israeli sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. One bill seeks to annex Ma'ale Adumim, and the other covers all settlements in Judea and Samaria. The move requires 3 Knesset readings to become law, and the timing of the move reportedly embarrassed Netanyahu, as it poses a risk of tensions with Washington. Far-right leaders celebrated the vote as historic, while Netanyahu's Likud called them political trolling, stressing that true sovereignty requires diplomatic coordination. Before boarding his flight to Israel, Secretary of State Marco Rubio made clear that annexation was unacceptable.
Yeah, that's a vote in the Knesset, but obviously I think the president's made clear that's not something we'd be supportive of right now, and we think there's even threatening to the peace deal. So they're a democracy, they're going to have their votes, people are going to take these positions, but at this time, it's something that we think it might be counterproductive.
Before leaving, Vance told President Herzog that there is a real chance now for peace in the Middle East.
We're here to talk about peace. We're here to talk about how to ensure that the peace agreement that started about a week ago sticks, that we move into phase 2 and phase 3 with success. As the president said, there will be torments along the way. It will be difficult, but I feel very optimistic based on my conversation with our Israeli friends and also with our Gulf Arab friends that it's possible that we actually can make peace stick and that we can create the kind of environment where our Gulf Arab friends and our Israeli friends can build a better Middle East for everybody.
And here are some additional latest comments by Vice President Vance on this topic.
The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it. Thank you.
These comments follow repeated efforts by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to halt his far-right minister's efforts to pass bills regarding annexation in Judea and Samaria. Trump commented as well, saying that Israel will not annex Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, as per his promise to Arab nations. Trump added that Israel will lose American support should the bill be passed in the second or third vote. Israel's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gideon Sa'ar, responded to this and said this was merely a preliminary move by one of Israel's members of Knesset, which saw no support from the Israeli government, and stressed that the government is aligned with President Trump. It will not be advancing the move as it's committed to Trump's peace plan. As high-level American officials continue to arrive in Israel, from Vice President JD Vance and envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who arrived today, the U.S. is deeply immersed in the implementation of the ceasefire and the post-war Gaza peace plan. To discuss what these diplomatic moves mean for Israel, we're now joined by Ruthie Bloom of JNS. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining, Ruthie. So we're seeing here a strong American presence on the ground with Trump and Witkoff and Kushner and Vance and now Rubio arriving to Israel. What does this level of engagement tell us about the U.S. peace plan and strategy at this stage of the war and the ceasefire?
Well, it tells you something good and something not so good. The good part is that it's clear that the Trump administration really is in lockstep with the Netanyahu administration. On the other hand, it's one of these moves that indicates, it's knocking on the open door. All of these talks about peace, 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 peace. First of all, let's see Hamas return the remaining 13 dead bodies that it's holding in Gaza, which is a requirement of phase 1 of this deal, which I don't like to call a peace deal because you can't have peace with Hamas or any other Palestinian terrorist group, or for that matter, the Palestinian Authority. What you can have in the future perhaps and hopefully, is a situation like the Abraham Accords, where you have normalization between Israel and other Arab and Muslim states, and that you rid Gaza, you de-radicalize and demilitarize Gaza. That'll take a really long time, because if, as the Trump administration is indicating, Turkey and Qatar, for example, not to mention Egypt, are going to have a role in post-war Gaza administration. That's very bad for Israel. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has said Turkey is a no-go.
Now, JD Vance spoke about making peace stick and building a new regional framework with Israel and the Gulf states, as you mentioned. How realistic is that goal at this point, in your opinion, given the fragile ceasefire and Hamas's instability and the fact that Hamas is still there?
Well, I don't pin too much hope on that in the near future, okay? I can't speak about the far future, because I'll tell you something, there are many things that have happened in the past 2 years since the October 7th massacre, including the massacre itself, that nobody anticipated. And that was a bad thing no one anticipated, unfortunately. But then, who would have believed that we were going to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities and then have the U.S. join us and finish the job? There was a time when any Israeli would say, well, we can't do it because then Iran will blitz us into oblivion. There are many, many things that have happened, like the Beeper operation with Hezbollah, like the Assad regime falling. There are many elements here, that there are many moving parts. But I'm not optimistic about something happening in the near future, because you have many bad actors trying to get in on the administration of Gaza, and they are Hamas supporters, or sponsors of terrorism. So naturally, I don't see that as a good sign. On the other hand, we do see the Gulf states, when the Abraham Accords first started, we saw genuine goodwill on the part of the Gulf states. We saw them, actual normalization projects, and they opened up kosher restaurants in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and things like that. The proof is in the pudding. Egypt, with which Israel has had a peace treaty for decades, never behaved like that. It was always a cold peace. So that's why I don't really call it a peace. And the Egyptian people continued to be utterly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you make of these comments now by all of these leaders about the annexation in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank? We're seeing a lot of comments and a lot of hype around this issue.
Now, I say this as someone who totally believes that Israel has the rights to Judea and Samaria, the biblical rights, but also security and other rights. And I believe in the annexation of Judea and Samaria. However, we needed this move like a hole in the head at this particular moment. What we should have been doing, as Netanyahu has indicated, is building in Judea and Samaria, is establishing facts on the ground, making this gesture in the Knesset, which, after all, doesn't have any teeth at the moment, and it takes a long time for a bill like that to pass thoroughly. And the leading party, Netanyahu's party, voted against it anyway, or didn't vote against it. The Knesset members from Likud all exited the plenum or abstained, all except for one, Yuli Edelstein, and now he voted for it, and now he's being penalized within his party. The point is, it's not that you have to always be right. You also have to be smart. And I don't think it was a smart move.
Ruthie, thank you very much for this input.
Thank you so much for having me.
The International Court of Justice has issued a ruling requiring Israel to facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip through UN agencies, including UNRWA. Israel rejected the IJC decision and said it will not happen. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The International Court of Justice found that Israel has not provided enough evidence that UNRWA employed Hamas terrorists and must work with the compromised body. Israel banned UNRWA from operating on Israeli soil after accusing some staff of participating in the October 7, 2003 Hamas attack on Israel. Israel argued that UNRWA facilities were infiltrated by Hamas with command centers, hideouts, and weapons found in at least 32 locations and that over 1,400 employees were members of Hamas or other terror groups. Israel claimed UNRWA was neither impartial nor neutral, violating the UN Charter. Investigations, including one by the court, found neutrality-related issues, but said Israel had yet to provide supporting evidence that a sufficient number of UNRWA employees are members of terrorist groups. The non-binding ICJ ruling stated that Israel must meet the basic needs of Gaza's population.
The court considers that Israel is under an obligation to agree to and facilitate relief schemes provided by the United Nations and its entities, including UNRWA.
The Vice President of the International Court of Justice, Julia Sebutinde, dissented from the court's advisory opinion, arguing that Israel retains discretion under international humanitarian law to determine how aid is delivered in Gaza. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar categorically rejected the ICJ opinion, calling it a political attempt to impose measures against Israel. He said Israel will not cooperate with an organization infested with terror activity and rejected the politicization of international law intended to harm Israel.
And now for the latest development with Israel's former hostages. Over the past week, families laid their loved ones to rest as more slain hostages were returned, while others across the country continue to wait for closure. But amid the grief, there are also signs of hope from those who returned home alive. For more, we now go to ILTV correspondent India Naftali. Hi, India.
Hi, Sivan, that's right. Across Israel, there are funerals and mourning, but also glimpses of hope. As families say their final goodbyes to loved ones whose bodies were returned from Gaza, some of the free hostages are beginning to take their first steps back into everyday life. In southern Israel, mourners gathered to bury Tal Haimi, whose body was returned this week after being held in Gaza for more than 2 years. Haimi's family said the burial brought a huge relief, explaining that until now they had no closure after years of uncertainty. There were also memorials for Thai hostage Sontaya Okorasi, as Israeli and Thai officials paid their respects before his remains were prepared for repatriation.
Today, we gather in deep sorrow to bid farewell to our compatriot, Mr. Sontaya Okorasi, a Thai national who tragically lost his life on 7 October 2023 and whose body was brutally taken into Gaza.
With these funerals, Israel now says 13 bodies of hostages are still being held in Gaza. Families are urging that the ceasefire agreement be fulfilled in full, so every victim can be brought home for burial. At the same time, freed hostages are returning to public life. The Berman brothers were seen together for the first time outside of medical care, reunited, steady, and grateful to be home. And Maxim Herkin, a captain in the IDF reserves who was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival, appeared in uniform at a military ceremony saying, "Thanks to you, I returned home to my civilian family. And today, I return to my family in uniform." Israel is now living in two realities: grief for those who never came home and hope for those who did. With no living hostages left in Gaza, the focus now turns to the final 13 bodies still being held and the families who continue to wait. Sivan?
Thank you, India. The academic year is already in full swing, and Reichman University is welcoming a new class of international students from around the world. ILTV was at the orientation day at the Reichman campus to see it all unfold. Have a look.
Nearly 800 students from around the world began orientation week at Reichman University's Rafael Recanati International School. Students started the day by meeting their personal counselors in green shirts and their fellow classmates for the year ahead. The students then toured the campus before kicking off the orientation ceremony, where the students were greeted by head of the Rafael Recanati International School, Jonathan Davis, as well as Professor Boaz Ganor, president of Reichman University. Both shared inspiring words.
What we have going on here is 800 brand new students coming to Reichman University. They are part of the 2,400 students studying here from 90 different countries for full academic degrees, either BA or MA. And they stood up to be counted. And in spite of everything else that's going on in the world or in Israel, they stood up, came here, and they're about to begin their journey here in Israel.
After the opening ceremony, a massive corner filled with extracurricular clubs, activities, and opportunities was open to all of the fresh students. From creative workshops to sports, clubs, and so much more, the opportunities to expand beyond just learning was palpable. The Students' Fair was underway, but ILTV set out to settle a burning question. What compels a student to register for classes in a country that had not yet entered a ceasefire in the war?
For me, it was more about safety, like with all the fears that brought coming to Israel. Learning in the U.S. did not bring a sense of safety to me, so I was more compelled to come to a place where I feel a sense of community and safety all around me.
It's a good opportunity to study in English and finish your degree in Israel especially. And the best part about here, I think, is the culture, because like such a different people are coming here from U.S., from Mexico. I met from Argentina also, and I'm from South Korea. I met from Hong Kong, and there's like a bunch of people, different cultures, and everyone's like integrating and becoming one and united.
I moved here 5 years ago to join the army originally. I came here as a lone soldier, and then I finished the war as well. I finished Army Louim, and I figured it was time to start life and start studying.
Like Gabriel, Noam Harouche served in the IDF. But Noam was severely injured in November of 2023 when his tank came under attack. His injuries led to the amputation of his leg. But today, with his prosthetic, Noam joins the international school at Reichman University to pursue his passions.
I want to make a difference. I want to do something big. I think I have the shlichut, as they say, to do something big. I think it's the right place. I am going into Mshal, so I'm hoping that I can find myself here and do whatever I can just to make the biggest difference that I can make here.
These students are coming from around the world and from different backgrounds, but they all have one thing in common.
Go with the flow. It's not too bad. It's as bad as people say, but it's really, really not. You meet friends for life, people for life, skills for life, and it definitely shapes and builds you into a better person.
I understand it can feel a little bit scary and intimidating, but everybody in Israel has a warm heart, and there's a beautiful community here.
Come here, enjoy the Israeli culture, the Jewish culture. It's something that you wouldn't have any way to experience in anywhere else.
Agreed. And now ILTV executive editor Maayan Hoffman's conversation with one of Britain's most controversial figures, Tommy Robinson, in Israel this week to talk about free speech, anti-Semitism, and whether his brand of truth-telling helps heal divisions or deepens them.
And I'd ban all funding from coming into our country from Qatar and from Iran. I'd stop the influence, exactly what you're trying to do, stop the influence in Lebanon, that from the Iranian money into Hezbollah. We need to stop the influence they have in mosques, madrasas, education centres, community centres across the West. A Palestinian state, put it to a democratic British vote. If our government wished to acknowledge a terrorist state and reward October 7th attacks, let the British public decide. I guarantee you and your audience, if the vote was put to the British public, there would never be a recognition of a Palestinian state. These organisations, these jihadists, it's part of their idea, it's part of their life, it's part of their commitment. They're going to continue to wage war on Israel and its Jews. They're going to continue to wage war on all of us. First comes Saturday, then comes Sunday. The Jews are on the front line because they're targeted first. Then they're coming for us. Who are our allies? Who are our friends? It's the state of Israel. For too long now, there's a mass propaganda trying to turn the public against Israel, the public against Jews. The media will never tell you this. The media told you that my former organisation is a far-right extremist racist organisation. Well, actually, here's the facts. The English Defence League, the entire time I led it, because groups like that are categorised by the Domestic Extremism Unit within Scotland Yard in London, the Metropolitan Police Force, the entire time I led it, it was categorised by the experts and the police as a centrist organisation, where Muslims' advice was to negotiate and discuss with us. But the media, just like they're doing to you, they weaponised the media and they destroyed us as far-right extreme racists, just like they're doing to you in the state of Israel. Exactly the same. And I've come here and interviewed Knesset members and ministers and politicians who are as concerned as us about the mass immigration flood in Europe, about the cultural change to Europe, and about the danger it poses for us at home, also for this beautiful nation. My final message is I come here in 2016 to ask a lot of questions and find out a lot of things. I paid young Muslim Arabs to take me to a Fatah-controlled refugee camp. I risked my life. And I did that because I wanted to understand from them what they face. And I expected them to tell me that they were oppressed by the State of Israel. Rather, they told me they were oppressed by the Palestinian Authority. I then found out about pay to slay. The British public don't know about pay to slay. The British public have no idea that our taxpayers' money goes to funding a terrorist organisation who then use the money to fund, and their words, rather than build education centres, rather than build hospitals, they would rather fund people to leave the refugee camps to kill Israelis. Most people back home don't know that. I've come here not just, I do defend the State of Israel, I side with the State of Israel, but I've come here first and foremost as a journalist, an investigative journalist. I've made many videos since I've been here asking questions. That's what I'm here for. And asking questions to feed back to the British audience to bypass the Hamas promoting BBC or the Channel 4 or any of these groups who are sympathetic to the cause of Palestine. I'm not sympathetic, I'm pretty honest, yeah? I'm not, but I know many of the misinformation, lies and smears that are told. I know it's lies. Yeah? So I've come here to find out this. I know this isn't an apartheid state. Let me show you it's not an apartheid state. So I've come here to ask questions and I feed back to the British audience what I find. That's what I'm here for.
And now it's time for our Hebrew word of the week. Each week, along with eTeacher, we learn a new Hebrew word and relate it to the Bible, current affairs, and our everyday lives. For more info on the Rosen School of Hebrew, please scan the QR code on your screen. But in the meantime, let's hear this week's word of the week.
Welcome to Hebrew Word of the Week. I'm Mariella, and in this segment, together with eTeacher, we explore the beauty and depth of the Hebrew language. We'll learn a new Hebrew word or phrase and see how it's used in the Bible, current events, and everyday life. Today's Hebrew word is bitachon, which means security. In Hebrew, security is essential in ensuring safety and stability, whether on a personal, community, or national level. Bitachon is a word that carries significant importance in Hebrew. It represents the concept of feeling safe, protected, and confident, whether in a physical, emotional, or spiritual context. Here are some examples of how the word bitachon is used in a sentence. Habitachon chashuv lekol adam. Security is important for everyone. Ani margisha bitachon kan. I feel secure here. So if you're interested in learning more about the Hebrew language, check out eTeacher. This online and live course is the most established Hebrew language instruction institution. You can learn with a time-proven method for every level or start from scratch. eTeacher offers dynamic online courses with live video lessons, weekly webinars, and ample support, and allows you to connect to a lively global community for an enriched learning experience. Scan the QR code or click the link below and visit the eTeacher website today to learn more. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Hebrew word bitachon. Please join us next week for another episode of Hebrew Word of the Week. In the meantime, I encourage you to explore the concept of bitachon in Hebrew culture and reflect on its significance in your own life. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments below.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel, and you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.